Hello folks, so welcome back to the channel and to part 3 of the Rubicon models Sherman build. So in this video we're going to look at the stowage. We'll have a quick look at what you get in the Rubicon models stowage set, the allied stowage set, and how I'm going to use that on the Sherman, just to add a little bit more interest to it. So we'll go down to the bench and we'll do all that. Ignore all the mess behind me. There's lots of work in progress going on at the minute, but that's never a bad thing. It's a beautiful sunny morning here in the UK, and it's going to be a lovely day. So I'm very early. It's now sort of 6 a.m. Get this done before the day starts really, and the missus gets out of bed and stuff, and I'm sure we'll spend most of the day in the garden, etc. So yeah, I'm waffling. So hit the like and subscribe, comment on the video if you want to know anything, or you don't like what I'm doing, or you do like it. Let me know. But I'm going to head down to the bench and we'll get this stowage sorted before the rest of the world wakes up. See you in a minute. So here we are, guys, with the Rubicon 56 scale stowage set. This is the allied stowage set. So straight away on the front, essentially the box art is what you get in the kit. These are the parts, and then we've got various sprue shots and the instructions themselves on the back, which are fairly straightforward. So in this kit we essentially get 2 sprues. They're identical, so I'm only going to show one very quickly. So as I say, the sprues are identical, and you get 2 of these, so you get loads and loads of stowage for, I think it's about £12 this particular set. So as we can see, we have these pre-molded sort of wooden crates, rope, covered in tarpaulin. We've got some spare wheels for a Sherman. We've got jerry cans, we've got spare track, we've got an actual road wheel from another vehicle. We have ammo crates, we've got all sorts of bits and bobs that we can add. Oil drums, we've got some bags, etc. There's a 30 cal there, tow hooks, bucket, there's all sorts, and the detail is really good for this scale. So it's probably one of these crates will probably show the detail best. So we've got the crate itself, but there is actually ingrained or wood detail on that. You can see it there. So once you put a wash on that and paint it, it's really going to take that really well and really pop. Jerry cans themselves, you know, 2 types there. We've got the USA, we've got the G for gasoline, we've got the holes in the barrel of the 30 cal. So for this scale, for this level of detail, for just a stowage set to put on vehicles, etc., is really good. So what I'm going to do, guys, is I'm going to go through the sprue. I'm going to pick certain bits of stowage that I want to put on the Sherman, and then we'll come back and I'll talk about how I'm going to paint them, etc. Dead simple, and then I obviously can put those on the tank itself. So I'll be back. Okay, guys, so these are the bits of stowage that I think I'm going to use. I've kind of had a play around, I've had a look at them, and these are the bits that I think will do what I need it to do, if that makes sense. So if we get the Sherman itself, which we've seen that it's been flat coated now, so we need to sort of think about where we're going to put the stowage. So this big bit here, I absolutely, excuse my painted thumb, I absolutely love this. I mean, you know, that you can see here the detail. Let me get something to point with. There we go. Here, where the tarp is creased, and you've got the outline of the crate and all, in the rope, and I really like that. And it's a nice big chunky piece of stowage in one piece, nice and easy to paint. And I'm thinking that can kind of go on the back there. And then I've got some various bits of crate, you know, bags, all jerry cans, and I can just put these over it. And once the figures are on it, I think we'll be where we need to be in relation to making it look used. So that's what I'm going to do. So these bits of Stowage, I'm going to mount these now on cocktail sticks and crocodile clips and all that stuff. And I'm going to prime them, and I'll be priming them in MIG one shot or Steiner Res or whatever you want to call it. Get that primed, let that dry, and then I'll come back and I'll probably only pick one bit of this to show on camera how I'm going to paint it. So we may as well go for this big bit here, of how I'll go about, excuse me, painting this, and then the rest I'll do off camera because it's a very similar process. So I'm going to get these primed, let them dry. Once that's done, I'll come back and we'll get this one painted. So folks, here we are. So as I said, I'm not going to paint all the Stowage on camera. It becomes very repetitive, very dull. We're going to use the same techniques pretty much on everything. But I will paint this one first. So this was the big sort of crates wrapped in the tarp, etc. So we're going to get cracking. The reason I'm using this piece of cardboard is the majority of this, and certainly the wood effects and stuff, is going to be dry brushed. And that cardboard is such a good, as you can see, I've done it many times, it's such a good medium to clear that paint off your brush, and that's essentially why I'm doing it. So the first color we're going to use is Model Color Flat Earth 983. So this will be the base for our sort of wood color, essentially. So we just decant a little bit onto the cardboard. And then I'm just using a number 4 flat blush from MIG, and we just get a bit on the brush, and then we just start to work that off the brush, because we want not a lot of it on our brush. As with anything, it's easier to add than take away, so start off gently and just starting to pick out the crates. I do appreciate that in reality probably some of these would have been painted, but for sort of that visual interest on the model itself, I'm going for sort of a wooden effect. And then we've got this strip of wood here across the top of the tarpaulin, so we'll pick that out, and the rope itself, and we're just picking out the detail really, and highlighting the details that are molded into the piece, and that's all we're doing. So it's as simple as that, and there we go. Really easy, no real issue whatsoever. So I'm not going to clean the brush in between, so it does look a bit dark on camera, but I assure you it's where it needs to be. So then we're going to use some Middlestone, which again is Model Color 882. Give it a good shake, and exactly the same, we're going to decant a little bit onto our cardboard, onto the brush, and then take the majority of it off the brush. And again, less is more, and we're just going to start to pick out the edges, etc. And there we go. And that is pretty much it for this stage for the wood. It's such a simple way of doing it. We're going for a wargaming type look on this model anyway, so we're not going to get massively caught up in, you know, hyper detail. We're going for visual interest, so we can see the wood starting to come out now. So now we need to paint the top. So we're going to switch from a dry brush, and essentially we're going to move to another Model Color paint, which is this one, Refractive Green, which is 890. As I've got the cardboard there, I don't really need to worry about a wet palette. You know, it's one color. We're not going to be blending it as such. So we shall decant a little bit, and again using a MIG brush. This is their number 2 round brush. as you can see. There we go. Whoa, dropped it. Cheap and cheerful. And that's all you need for this sort of painting. You don't need to be using your Artis Opus and Winsor and Newtons and all that sort of stuff. So we're just going to get this green onto the top. Now just be careful around the edges. We now don't want to get any of this green onto the rope or the wood on top of the top. And we just build it up. So thin layers are your key. You don't really want to, you know, plaster this on. We don't need to. The thinner the paint and the thinner the layers of the colour, the better really. And then once this is shaded, which we're going to show, or I'm going to show how to do that in a really simple way. Yeah, once it's shaded and then highlighted, we'll be there. And as I say, we're going for visual interest rather than hyper detail, historical accuracy, and try and do this in a wargaming kind of way, and yet create essentially a nice, you know, a nice model with a nice base, but in that style. I don't think I'm explaining that particularly well, what I've got in my head. You know, certainly if you're doing this in 35th scale, you would spend a lot more time with blending and highlights and shadows, because firstly it's bigger, so it's more noticeable, and the details are going to be bigger, so you really want to accentuate those. But at this scale, although the detail is very nice, it's nice and crisp, we don't need to go nuts on accenting all that detail, if that makes sense. So there we go. So that's the green on. Now this is acrylic, water-based, dries really quick. So next stage, clean that brush a little bit. Now, I'm not a professional modeler. I use lots of things that I find around the house, and here we go. So this is the top of a cotton bud container. They're great for just mixing acrylics on, really. So the next thing we're going to use is we're going to use the Army Painter Quick Shade Military Shader. So essentially it's an acrylic based wash. They are good, and they have lots of colours, and they do a lot of military type stuff, but they are quite thick, and we don't want it that thick. So I'm going to mix it about 50-50 with Citadel Larmian Medium, because obviously Citadel find it impossible to use names that we can pronounce. So all we do is decant that on top of there, and then we'll get a little bit of the medium, about the same quantity, and then we just start to mix it in the middle. And as you can see, what that does is it thins it quite a lot. And once we're happy, again on our round brush, we just paint this onto where the green is, and then we'll let this dry, and then we'll come back in and do all the you know, the highlights, or as much as we're going to do on this anyway. And that's that. We really try and get it into where the recesses are in the top. That's where we want it predominantly, to create this shadow effect around the edges, but not on the crates, not on the rope, if we can help it. I mean, you're kind of at a stage now where if you make a mistake and you get it where you don't want it, you really, essentially, you're gonna have to go back to the beginning, because it's difficult to fix with dry brushing. So there we go, it's all done. That'll take about 20 minutes to dry, and then we'll come back in and we'll essentially highlight it, and it's done. And then off camera I'll do the rest of the stowage. So I shall be back very, very shortly. Okay guys, so the wash, shade, whatever you want to call it, is pretty much dry now. Been about 20 minutes or so. So all we're going to do now is use my good old favourite Citadel Shabty bone, and again we're just using the flat brush from MIG size 4, and we're just going to dry brush very gently around the edges. So we'll start on the wood. Sounds wrong, doesn't it? But just start to gently move that brush over the edges of the crates and the rope. And what we'll start to see fairly quickly, without any effort whatsoever, is we start to pick out these sort of edges. You can see there now. So we've got this highlight starting to appear where the tarp is cast or molded over the crate, and there we go. We just go all the way around, and what it does, it acts as a highlight to the raised areas and creates a dust effect. I absolutely love this stuff. I think, you know, it's a technique that I was shown a couple of years ago using this way to do this, and I think it just works, and it's very reminiscent of the old school armor technique of that real thin coat of Tamiya buff, you know, dry brush over at the end, tie everything in together. It's that equivalent. We're just using a paintbrush rather than an airbrush to do it. And for me, the effect it gives, for the amount of effort that it requires, which is pretty much zero, is just, yeah, it's a no-brainer for me. Use it all the time. All the time. And there we go, we're done. So that's it. We have, it's still a bit shiny just where the wash has been, but once it's flat coated, and we'll get rid of that bit of dust and stuff, but once that's flat coated, it's really going to pop. And we'll do all of the stowage in a very similar way, using similar techniques and colors, and then we're ready to put it on the vehicle. So yeah, there we go, done. I'll be back. So there we go, folks. Yeah, we're done. So we'll move around the vehicle. None of this is glued in place currently, because we may end up, once we start adding some figures and that sort of thing, we may end up moving it around. But obviously the bit that I've shown on camera is there. The crates and the rope and the tarp and all that, so that's going to sit there. We've got the 4 jerry cans at the back here, some ammo crates here, and then as we turn the vehicle round, at the front we have just this sort of kit bag on the front fender there. That may move depending where the figures are going to go, and just a piece of track there. And all painted, I told you none of it was attached, all painted in the way I've shown this bit here. Dead simple, doesn't take long, and just adds that little bit extra to the kit, to the vehicle, and yeah, I like the effect it gives for what we're trying to achieve. So that's it, guys. I'll go back face the camera and say my goodbyes. So there we go, the stowage is done. It's temporarily put on the vehicle. I don't think I'll add any more. We've still got all the figures and stuff, which is going to be in the next part. That's what we're going to be doing next. We're going to be the tank riders, the crew, putting them onto the vehicle, and then we'll have a better idea of composition. Do we need a bit more stowage, or do we need less to create the effect that we want to sort of look at? So that will be in part 4, which I'm hoping to get done fairly soon, real world permitting. And in part 4 we'll start to have a look at the base that I've been working on, which I haven't done as a step-by-step because I'm using predominantly cardstock. As I've said, it's a new material for me, so there's been lots of tests and adjusts on that over the last well, a couple of months probably to get that done. So we'll have a look at that. We'll get the vehicle on the base with the figures, because that's going to assist us then in the composition and how many of the figures we're going to use, positioning and all that sort of stuff. And once the figures are on it and that's done, we're pretty much done. So I think, yeah, that's going to be part 4, where we look at the figures and we start to add the vehicle and the figures onto the base. And then probably part 5 will be the last part, and that will just be a little bit of sort of finesse and making sure we've got everything as we want it. And that's it. That'll be it. 5 parts. Yeah, and we're done. So until next time, guys, if you're in the UK, certainly in the Midlands, have a great weekend. It's going to be a beautiful, beautiful day, I'm sure. So hopefully there'll be a few beers and a bit of barbecue action going on. Yeah, so have a great day. Have a great weekend as always. Thank you for watching. Stay safe. Happy hobbying. Bye-bye.